The VNN Chiron slid across the bottom of the screen in bright red. Unconfirmed. Armed vigilante in Midtown, Vought silent phones were already up before anyone even understood what they were filming. People stood in the street, shoulder to shoulder, aiming their cameras at a smashed-up crosswalk and a crooked line of black Vought SUVs. Some laughed. Some swore. A few looked like they wanted to run, but did not want to be the first one to look scared. A costumed hero had been here minutes ago. That much was clear. A car was flipped on its side. Streetlights were bent. A billboard for the 7 blinked calmly over the chaos like nothing was wrong. Then the air above the road made a sharp, ugly sound. It did not crack like thunder. It sounded more like metal tearing. A thin, bright cut opened in the sky, low enough that a bus could have scraped it if it drove under. Light spilled out. Not warm light. Cold light. White and hard. Something heavy fell through first. It hit the asphalt with a slam that made everyone's teeth click. A big motorcycle skidded sideways, sparks fanning out behind it. It spun once, stopped in the middle of the street, and stayed upright, like it had decided to stand. A second shape dropped through the tear right after. Boots hit. A black armored figure landed in a half-crouch. A long coat snapped around his legs. A helmet with a hard chin and dark visor turned left, right, up, fast. Like a scanner, his gloved hand was already on a gun. The tear snapped shut with a final ripping sound. The street went quiet for half a second, like the world was holding its breath. The armored man rose to full height and stepped forward. He moved like he had done this 1,000 times. He did not look around in wonder. He did not ask where he was. He checked for threats. A pair of men on the sidewalk saw the confusion and made a stupid choice. They shoved through the crowd, pulling pistols from their waistbands, faces lit up with the kind of greed that thought the world had turned off its rules. "Phones down," one of them barked, waving his gun at a woman who was still filming. "Wallets out." The armored man turned. His voice came out flat and firm. "Drop your weapons." The robbers blinked at him like they did not understand what kind of person could talk like that. One of them laughed. "Who the hell are you, RoboCop?" The armored man raised his gun. The barrel tracked to the robber's hand, not his head. His voice did not change. "Drop your weapons." The robber lifted his pistol, trying to look brave for the cameras. The armored man fired once. The shot did not sound like a normal gun. It made a sharp, clean snap. The robber's hand jerked. The pistol clattered to the ground. The man yelped and fell to his knees, clutching his wrist, eyes wide. The second robber fired at the armored man. The bullets pinged off the armor with little sparks. The armored man did not flinch. He did not even step back. He fired again. Another snap. The second robber's gun flew out of his grip. He stumbled and hit the pavement hard. The armored man walked toward them, calm as a clock. On your knees, hands behind your head. They did it. Not because they wanted to, because the street had changed. Everyone could feel it. This was not a soup. This was not a celebrity. This was something else. Something that did not care who was watching. A police cruiser rolled up late, siren whooping as if noise could fix the problem. 2 NYPD officers got out, hands hovering near their holsters, eyes locked on the helmeted stranger. "Hey," one officer called. "Put the weapon down, now!" The armored man looked at the officer. His visor hid his eyes, but the officer still felt watched. The stranger spoke like he was reading from a rule book carved into stone. "Identify your authority." The officer frowned. I'm NYPD." The stranger tilted his helmet a fraction. "Not sufficient." Behind the cops, black Vought SUVs pushed into place. Men in clean tactical gear jumped out with practiced speed. A woman in a blazer with a Vought badge stepped forward, smiling like she was walking onto a talk show set. "Hi," she said. Voice bright, hands open. "We're here to help. You've caused a lot of concern. Let's step over here and get you somewhere safe." The armored man did not move. The woman kept smiling. "We can explain everything. We'll make sure you're protected, okay? The media can be unfair." The armored man turned his helmet toward the crowd. Cameras, faces, fear, hunger for a story. Then he turned back to the woman. "State your legal jurisdiction." The woman's smile tightened. "We work with the authorities." "Name the statute." She blinked once. "Sir, we don't need." The armored man took one step forward. Not a threat, just a fact moving closer. "If you cannot state your legal power," he said, "you cannot command me." The woman's eyes flicked to the Vought men behind her. Her voice dropped, still polite, still sharp. "You can't do that." The armored man's gun stayed low at his side. His voice was the same as before. "Watch me." Huey Campbell watched the clip 3 times and felt his stomach twist in a new way each time. The first time, he saw the tear in the air and thought, "This is another Vought trick, another nightmare, another hero surprise." The second time, he saw the stranger take bullets like they were raindrops, and his brain tried to file it under soup. But the man did not move like a soup. Soups showed off, even when they pretended not to. This guy did not show off. He enforced. The third time, Huey focused on the sound of the gun. Not a normal gun, not a Vought toy either. The shots were too clean, too controlled. He looked up at Butcher across the safe house table. Butcher's eyes were narrow and sharp, like he was staring at a lock he wanted to pick. Mother's Milk leaned in, arms crossed. "That's not NYPD, and that's not Vought." Frenchie had the video paused on the helmet. He zoomed in and squinted. "Is that an eagle?" "It's a costume," Huey said, and heard how weak he sounded. Butcher snorted. "Costume doesn't shrug off bullets." On the TV, VNN played the clip again with dramatic music and a panicked anchor. The words "armed vigilante" flashed like a warning label. Butcher pointed at the Vought woman on screen. "See her? That's Vought crisis control. They don't show up unless there's money at risk." MM's jaw tightened. Or unless they're about to cover something up. Huey swallowed. "So who is he?" Butcher leaned back and spread his hands, like this was obvious. "A problem, or a gift. Depends who grabs him first." Starlight watched the same footage alone in a quiet corner of Vought Tower and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. Not big, shining hope. Not the kind in posters. A small kind. A stubborn kind. The man in the helmet did not smile. He did not wave. He did not ask the cameras to love him. He told criminals to drop their weapons and made them do it. An assistant knocked and slipped in with a tablet. "They're calling him a terrorist now." Starlight's hands curled into fists. "He stopped an armed robbery." The assistant shrugged, like that did not matter. "Vought hasn't approved any statement." That was the point. Starlight understood it in her bones. If Vought did not own you, Vought feared you. They brought him to a clean room with bright lights and thick glass, the kind of room built to feel like a hospital and a prison at the same time. Judge Dredd stood in the center, hands relaxed, feet set like a man who could fight in a phone booth. His helmet stayed on. His gun stayed holstered, but his posture made it clear it could come out in a blink. 2 Vought security teams waited behind the glass. They were not NYPD. They were not federal. They were a private army wearing tidy uniforms. A man in a suit entered the room with a tablet and a practiced smile. "Hello," the man said. "I'm here to conduct a safe, legal interview. My name is—" "State your authority," Dredd said. The man's smile faltered for half a beat, then returned. We are acting under emergency protocols, for public safety. Name the law. The man's eyes flicked down to his tablet. Under the Patriot. Dredd cut him off. You do not know. You are guessing. The man's face tightened. Sir, we're trying to help you. Dredd's voice stayed level. Identify the city. Identify the governing code. Identify the court. The man leaned forward slightly, trying a softer tone. You had an incident. You appeared out of thin air. People are scared. Dredd gave the smallest tilt of his helmet. Fear is not a legal document. A door hissed open again. Starlight walked in. She did not bring cameras. She did not bring a smile. She brought a real face, the one she usually kept hidden under Vought's makeup. The suit guy looked surprised. Annie, you don't need to. I want to, she said, and did not look at him. She looked at Dredd. Hi, I'm Starlight. Dredd's helmet turned. He took her in. Costume, body language, the way the guards held their breath like they would obey her if she snapped her fingers. Are you law enforcement? He asked. Starlight hesitated. No, she said, because lying to him felt impossible. Not like you mean it. Dredd's voice did not soften, but it shifted into something like a question instead of a command. Then why are you here? Because, Starlight said, this place is dangerous. And if they decide you're a threat, they don't stop. Dredd stared at her through dark visor glass. If they are not law, they will be judged. Starlight felt a chill, not because he sounded scary, because he sounded certain. She took a careful step closer. What should I call you? Dredd's answer came fast. Judge. That's your job? It is my duty. Starlight nodded slowly. Okay, Judge. Where did you come from? Dredd paused, just a fraction, like he was deciding how much truth a stranger earned. Mega City 1, he said. Starlight blinked. That's not anywhere. It is, Dredd replied. In my world. The suit man cleared his throat, trying to grab control again. Right. Great. So we can agree you're disoriented, which means we should secure your equipment and— No, Dredd said. The suit's voice sharpened. You cannot carry weapons in this building. Dredd looked at him. Then arrest me. Under law. The man's smile turned into a thin line. We don't have to arrest you to restrain you. Dredd's hand drifted, not to his gun, but to the badge on his chest. The word judge was stamped plain, and heavy, like it was meant to last longer than any flag. Then you are criminals, Dredd said, and you will be treated as such. Behind the glass, one of the Vault security leaders tapped an earpiece. Another nodded back. Starlight caught the motion. Her heart thumped. They were not here to interview. They were here to take. She lifted her chin. He stays armed, she said, voice firm. The suit snapped his head at her. Annie, this is above you. Starlight did not back down. Then call Homelander. If you want to do this the hard way, do it in the open. The suit froze, like she had pulled a knife. Dredd watched her closely. You seek to limit violence. Starlight swallowed. I'm trying to keep people alive. Dredd's voice was steady. Good. Outside the room, deeper in the tower, the news screen switched again. VNN ran another headline. Vought investigates unknown. Armed judge. Possible foreign threat. In an office high above, Stan Edgar listened without changing his expression. A scientist stood across from him, hands shaking slightly as he held out a data report. The energy signature, the scientist said. It wasn't a weapon we know. It looked like a breach, a tear. Edgar's eyes moved down the page, slow and calm. Can you reproduce it? No, the scientist admitted. Not yet. Edgar set the paper down like it weighed nothing. Then we will not talk about tears. We will talk about containment." "And the man?" the scientist asked. Edgar's voice was quiet. "The man is a brand if we can hold him. A warning if we cannot." He looked out at the city through glass that never got dirty. "Either way," Edgar said, "he will be useful." That night, Butcher and the boys did not sleep. They moved. They had a small stash of stolen Vault access cards and a plan that was not really a plan yet. Butcher called it a poke. Called it reckless. Frenchie called it fun. Huey called it, "Please don't get us killed." They got near Vault Tower by being boring. No masks, no guns out, just people with tired faces walking fast. Inside, a crowd had gathered outside a side entrance. A few reporters, a few fans, a few Vault interns acting like they were on a red carpet. And there, in the middle of it all, 2 Vault PR people tried to talk into a camera while also trying to keep the camera pointed away from the building. "We can confirm," one PR man said, voice bright, "that Vault is assisting local authorities in dealing with an armed individual. Public safety remains our top priority." A woman in the crowd shouted, "Is he a new soup?" The PR man laughed like it was a cute question. "We don't have details yet, but—" A door opened behind him. Judge Dredd stepped out. He moved through the doorway like he owned it. Like rules followed him, not the other way around. The PR man's smile almost cracked. He turned, panicked, and hissed, "No, no, no, not now!" A fan shoved forward with a phone. "Say the line! Say the—" Dredd stopped and looked down at the phone like it was a piece of evidence. "Move along," he said. The fan blinked. "What?" Dredd did not shout. He did not threaten, but everyone heard him. "This is an active investigation," Dredd said. "You are obstructing." The crowd stepped back like the air had turned colder. Butcher watched from across the street, half hidden behind a food cart. "He's real," Huey whispered. Butcher's mouth curled a little. Not a smile. Something hungrier. "Yeah," Butcher said. "And Vaught's already trying to chew him up." Stared at Dredd's armor, his gun, the way he held himself like a walking wall. "He's not scared." Frenchie's eyes shone. "He is, how you say, a man who does not bend." Butcher's gaze flicked to the sky, to the tower, to the cameras. "Nobody gets to not bend in this world. Not for long." They tried to take his gun the next morning, not with paperwork, not with a judge and a warrant, with a squad. Dredd stood in a wide lobby with marble floors and giant Vote logos that felt more like warnings than decoration. The room was meant for tourists and donors. It had couches that looked expensive and harmless. Vought security filed in from 3 sides, rifles up, faces hidden behind tinted shields. A voice came over speakers, smooth, corporate. "For the safety of our staff and the public, you are required to surrender all weapons and equipment." Dredd's helmet turned slightly, tracking the nearest exits. He spoke to the air like the air could be charged with a crime. "You have no legal authority." The voice stayed calm. "Non-compliance will be met with force." Dredd's hand went to his lawgiver. He drew it with a clean motion and held it pointed down. "Not firing yet. Not giving them an excuse." "Force," Dredd said, "is not law." A figure stepped out from behind the security line. Black Noir. He moved quietly, almost casually, like this was a hallway, not a battlefield. His mask hid everything, even intent. Dredd's body tightened a fraction. Not fear. Focus. "Identify yourself," Dredd ordered. Noir did not answer. He sprang. He covered distance too fast for a normal man in that kind of suit. He came in low and sharp, a black blade flashing up toward Dredd's ribs. Dredd pivoted and snapped his forearm down. Armor met steel. The knife skated off with a squeal. Dredd shoved Noir back with one hard step. Noir rolled with it and came up already swinging again. Dredd fired once, point blank at Noir's chest. The shot snapped like a whip. Noir's body jerked as the round hit, but he did not fall. He staggered half a step, then kept coming like pain was a suggestion. Dredd fired again, then a third time, changing aim fast. Shoulder, thigh, knee. He was trying to stop movement, not kill. Noir ate the shots, and still moved. The security line started firing too. Dredd shifted, stepping behind a thick pillar. Bullets chipped stone. Dust sprayed into the air. He pressed 2 fingers to the side of his helmet. It was a reflex. There was no radio link here, no judges, no dispatch, just silence. He moved anyway. Dredd leaned out, fired a smoke round into the middle of the lobby, and the space filled with thick gray cloud. People screamed. Tourists ran. Vought staff ducked behind furniture. Noir did not run. A shadow cut through the smoke, blade up. Dredd turned at the last second and caught Noir's wrist. The two of them locked for a heartbeat. Noir's strength was not like a normal man, not super strength like Homelander, but stronger than he should be. Dredd's boots dug into the marble. His voice stayed calm. Assaulting an officer, resisting arrest. Noir yanked, trying to break Dredd's grip. Dredd used the pull, stepped in close, and slammed his armored shoulder into Noir's chest. Noir hit the floor hard enough to crack tile. Dredd aimed the lawgiver down. "Cease," Dredd commanded. Noir's head turned slightly, like he was listening to something only he could hear. Then he kicked up, sweeping Dredd's legs. Dredd went down but rolled, coming up on one knee, gun still steady. Noir was already on his feet again, silent and relentless. A beam of bright white light cut across the smoke. Starlight! She stood at the edge of the lobby, hands raised, eyes hard. The light around her did not look pretty now. It looked like a warning flare. "Stop!" she shouted. Some security men froze. Others did not. Noir did not. Starlight blasted him with a burst of light that hit like a heavy shove. Noir slid across the floor and slammed into a desk. Papers flew. Dredd used the opening to reposition. He backed toward the doors, staying between the panicked civilians and the armed line. "Evacuate!" He ordered the nearest people, voice loud enough to cut through. Screams. They listened, not because he was famous, because he sounded like the only adult in the room. A laugh drifted down from above. It was not a happy laugh. It was a sound that meant someone enjoyed being the biggest thing in the room. The air pressure shifted. People looked up without meaning to. Homelander floated down from the upper-level balcony like a god coming off a stage. His cape barely moved. His smile was perfect. "Okay," Homelander said, voice friendly for the cameras that he knew were hidden. "That's enough." Starlight's throat went tight. "Homelander." Homelander didn't look at her yet. His eyes locked on Dredd. "Who are you supposed to be?" he asked, like he was talking to a child wearing a helmet. "Some kind of cop?" Dredd lifted his lawgiver, not to aim at Homelander's face, but to keep it ready. His voice was firm. "I am a judge." Homelander's smile widened. "Cute." He drifted forward, slow and confident. Dredd did not step back. He took one step forward instead. "Name!" Dredd demanded. Homelander blinked, almost surprised someone would speak to him like that. "Excuse me?" "Identify yourself," Dredd said. "For the record." Homelander chuckled. "I'm Homelander." Dredd processed the name like a file label. He looked at the smashed lobby, the armed men, the tourists running, the private soldiers obeying a corporate voice. Then he looked up at Homelander again. "You are operating as a weapon," Dredd said, without oversight, without due process. "You are a danger to civilians." Homelander's eyes narrowed just slightly. His smile stayed on, but it stopped reaching his cheeks. "And you," Homelander said softly, "are in my building." pointing a gun. Dredd's answer was immediate. "You are under arrest." The lobby went silent in a new way. Somewhere above, a hidden camera adjusted its angle. Starlight's heart hammered. Her mind screamed. "Don't. Please don't." Homelander stared for a full second, like he was waiting for someone to laugh. No one did. So Homelander moved. He shot forward fast enough to blur. The air snapped. He grabbed Dredd by the front of his armor and lifted him off the ground like he weighed nothing. Dredd's boots kicked once, then steadied. He did not panic. He did not beg. He did not shout. He raised the lawgiver and fired at Homelander's chest. The round popped harmlessly against Homelander's suit. Homelander laughed again, louder. "Oh my, you're serious?" He shook Dredd once, a rough motion that would have broken a normal man's neck. Dredd's armor held. His body held. He grunted but did not go limp. Starlight stepped forward, light flaring around her hands. "Put him down." Homelander turned his head just enough to look at her. The look was not loud. It was worse. It was quiet and cold. "Stay out of it," he said. Dredd used the moment. He fired a bright flash round directly into Homelander's eyes. For a fraction of a second, the light bloomed like a camera flash multiplied by 100. Homelander's head snapped back on reflex. His grip loosened just a hair. Dredd twisted, dropped, hit the floor in a roll, and came up behind a thick column. Homelander blinked. He was already recovering, already angry that something had made him blink at all. "Okay," Homelander said, voice still smooth. "Now, I'm annoyed." Heat glowed behind his eyes. Starlight threw herself between Homelander and the fleeing civilians. "Don't!" Homelander didn't fire. Not yet. Because the lobby was full of witnesses. Because there were cameras. Because the world had rules for him, even if they were fake rules. Dredd understood that without being told. He looked at the people running. He looked at the exits. He looked at the security men who were hesitating because Starlight was there. He made a choice. He wasn't going to beat Homelander. Not with bullets. Not with armor. Not today. So he changed the goal. He raised his voice, sharp and clear, aimed at the whole lobby and every phone that might still be recording. "Civilians present," Dredd called out. "Any lethal action will be a crime." Homelander's smile twitched. Dredd kept going, calm as a verdict. "Homelander," he said, "you will stand down." Homelander floated higher, like he wanted to look down on Dredd in every way possible. "Or what? You'll arrest me harder?" Dredd stepped out from behind the column, just enough to be seen. He did not aim the gun at Homelander now. He pointed it slightly down, in a way that told everyone, "I'm not the aggressor." "I will record your actions," Dredd said. "I will collect evidence. I will return. Law does not end because you are strong." Homelander stared at him. For the first time, it wasn't just anger on his face. It was something like confusion. How do you scare someone who does not fear you? Across the street, outside the tower. Butcher watched a live stream on Huey's phone. The audio was messy. The picture shook, but the moment was clear. A man in a helmet had told Homelander, "Stand down." And Homelander had not killed him yet. Butcher's lips parted in a slow, cruel grin. "Well," he murmured, "that's new." Inside the lobby, Starlight's palms burned with gathered light. She held herself steady. She didn't know if she was protecting Dredd, the civilians, or the thin lie of heroes that kept the world from seeing the truth all at once. Homelander's eyes shifted, tracking phones, tracking angles, tracking risk. His smile returned, bright and fake. He clapped once, slow. "Great show," Homelander said. "Really, 10 out of 10. He leaned forward in the air, voice dropping so only Dredd and Starlight could hear. "This is my world," he whispered. You don't get to walk in and tell me what I am." Dredd's reply was a quiet stone. "You are guilty," he said. Homelander's smile held, but the skin around his eyes tightened. Then he rose back up, turning toward the security teams like a king addressing servants. "Everybody relax," Homelander said loudly. "We're handling it." He looked at Starlight. "Annie, take care of the crowd." Starlight's jaw clenched. "And him?" Homelander looked back at Dredd. "We'll talk. Later." He floated away, not because he was afraid of Dredd's gun, because he was afraid of what it looked like if he crushed Dredd in front of everyone. Dredd watched him go, visor unreadable. His hand tightened on the lawgiver. Outside, sirens wailed closer. News vans rolled in like sharks, smelling blood. Dredd did not run. He walked. Straight toward the front doors, moving through the chaos like the chaos was something he could sentence. Vought security tried to close in again. Starlight stepped into their path and flashed bright enough to make them flinch. "Back off," she snapped. They hesitated. They didn't want to fight with her on camera either. Dredd reached the doors and stopped for one beat. He looked out at the city. Big. Loud. Full of people who did not trust the law because the law had failed them. He stepped outside into the noise, and the phone swung toward him like sunflowers. A reporter shouted, "Who are you?" Dredd kept walking. Another yelled, "Are you with Vought?" Dredd didn't even slow down. Someone shoved a microphone in his path. "Say something! Give us a statement!" Dredd finally turned his helmet a fraction, voice flat, loud enough to cut through the shouting. "This city is out of control," he said. "That will change." Then he walked on, leaving the tower behind him, leaving Homelander with a new problem he could not punch into silence. And above the noise, on 100 screens, the VNN headline updated again. Vought declares armed judge, a threat to public safety. Dredd heard it from a nearby TV through an open shop door. Kios did not look back. He just kept moving forward, already planning the next step, like the law was a road, and he was built to follow it. 3 days after the tower lobby, the city tried to act like it had already moved on. It did not. Every screen had the same loop. The helmet. The gun. The word arrest aimed at the most famous soup on Earth. People replayed it like it was a magic trick. Some laughed because it felt impossible. Some got angry because it felt insulting. Some got scared because it felt true. Huey sat on the safe house couch with the remote in his hand, like he could turn the whole world off if he clicked hard enough. Every channel had a version of the story, and every version was wrong in a different way. Armed extremist. Foreign agent. Rogue super. Vought hero in development. The anchor smiled and said, "Sources say this judge may be connected to anti-soup terror cells." Huey muttered. He stopped a robbery. Butcher didn't. Look up from the table. He was cleaning a weapon with slow care, the way he did when his brain was moving faster than his hands. "They're building the cage," Butcher said. MM leaned against the wall, arms folded. "They're building a reason." Frenchie scrolled on his phone, eyes wide. "People are selling shirts already. Look, I am the law." Huey looked up. "Is that what he said?" Butcher's mouth twisted. He said enough. On another screen, a Vought spokesperson stood in front of a flag and a clean backdrop. The spokesperson's teeth were too white, his suit too perfect. "We appreciate the public's concern," he said. "Vought is working closely with law enforcement. We urge citizens not to approach the armed individual. If you see him, do not engage. Call the hotline." The number flashed under the man's face. Butcher pointed at it with the rag in his hand. "Hotline." Like he's a lost dog. Huey's phone buzzed with a new alert, a blurry video of the helmeted man walking down a street, while teenagers ran beside him, filming, begging him to say something cool. The helmeted man had stopped, looked down at them, and said, flat as a door closing, "Move along." Then he had kept walking. The comment section was full of jokes. The comments right under those jokes were full of hate. Huey swallowed. They're going to get him killed. Butcher finally looked up, eyes sharp. Or they're going to make him kill somebody on camera. Either way, Vought wins. MM's voice was low. Unless he's smarter than them. Butcher gave a small, dark grin. He's not stupid. He's just built wrong for this place. Huey didn't know what that meant until he saw it himself. Later that afternoon, in a part of the city where the buildings were older and the streets were tighter, a small crowd had gathered around a police precinct. Not because there was a parade, because the helmet was there. The judge stood at the front steps like a statue carved out of rules. His motorcycle waited by the curb, heavy and still. The sun hit his armor and made hard lines of light. People filmed from across the street. A few tried to get close, then stopped when they saw how still he was. 2 NYPD officers stood in the doorway, blocking the entrance. Their hands hovered near their belts. "You can't come in here," one officer said. "This is an active station." The judge's voice carried without shouting. "This is a place of law," the officer snorted. "And who the hell are you?" The judge's helmet tilted a fraction. "A judge," the second officer laughed. "Okay, Judge, you got a badge?" The judge tapped his chest. A metal badge stamped with one word. "Judge." The first officer squinted like he was reading a prank. "That's not..." The judge stepped forward one pace. "I have prisoners." He gestured to the side. 2 men sat on the curb with their hands zip-tied behind their backs. Their faces were bruised. Their eyes were wide. They looked like they had tried to test him and lost fast. "Attempted armed robbery," the judge said. "Assault, possession of illegal firearms." The first officer's eyes flicked to the crowd, then back. "We'll take it from here." "Process them," the judge ordered. The officer's posture stiffened. "You don't order me." The judge's helmet turned slowly, taking in the precinct sign, the uniforms, the people watching. "Then you will be observed," he said. He walked up the steps. The officers moved to block him. The judge did not draw his gun. He did not punch. He did something worse in this world. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. He held it up. A red light blinked. "Recording," he said. The officers froze for half a second because they recognized the danger of a clean record more than they feared any gun. The judge stepped past them. Inside the station, the air smelled like old coffee and tired anger. A desk sergeant looked up from paperwork and frowned. "Can I help you?" the sergeant asked. The judge walked straight to the desk. "I am delivering suspects." The sergeant's eyes went to the badge, then to the helmet, then to the recording light. "Are you federal?" the sergeant asked carefully. "No," the judge said. The sergeant exhaled. "Then you're not." The judge leaned forward slightly. "This station will do its duty." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even rude. It was a sentence. Behind the desk, an officer in plain clothes stepped out of a back room, chewing a toothpick. He sized the judge up and smirked. "Hey," he said, "you're the guy from TV." The judge's helmet turned. "Name?" The man laughed. "Excuse me?" "Identify yourself," the judge repeated. The plainclothes man spread his hands. "Detective." "Name," the judge said again, and his voice made it sound like the only acceptable answer was the truth. The detective's smile thinned. "Okay. You got a problem, Judge?" The judge's recording light blinked. "I'm conducting an audit," he said. A few officers nearby scoffed. One muttered, "Audit," like it was a dirty word. The judge stepped back, scanning bulletin boards, report stacks, the holding cell door. He moved like someone reading the shape of a room, not just looking at it. Then he stopped. A small stack of cash sat partly hidden under a clipboard on the sergeant's desk. Not a lot. Enough to be noticed if you were looking for it. The sergeant's face changed when the helmet turned toward it. "That's..." the sergeant started. The judge reached out and lifted the clipboard with 2 fingers. The cash was now fully visible. The room went quiet. The judge's voice stayed flat. "Bribery." The sergeant's face went red. "You don't know what that is?" The judge turned his helmet to the officers watching from the sides. "This station is compromised." The detective in plain clothes took a step forward, toothpick still in his mouth, voice low. "You want to leave, mate?" The judge's head tilted. "No." The detective's hand drifted toward his belt. The judge's lawgiver cleared leather in a single clean motion and pointed down at the detective's knee. Not at his chest, not at his head, at the part that would stop him from walking. "Do not," the judge said. The detective froze. His eyes flicked to the recording light again. Outside, someone banged on the precinct door and shouted, "Say the line! Say you're the law!" The judge didn't look away from the detective. "Move along," he said, not even raising his voice. The words carried anyway. That was the moment the officers in the room understood what made him dangerous. He didn't want fame. He didn't want money. He didn't want to win an argument. He wanted the system to work, and he was willing to force it. "Wait a moment," crackled. A voice came through, tense. We got vote security on the way. They're saying that Judge is a threat. They want cooperation." The sergeant looked at the detective like, "Please, let this fix it." The detective's eyes narrowed. The judge's helmet turned slowly toward the radio. "Vought," he said, like he had filed the name under organized crime. He lowered the gun without holstering it. "Bring me your watch, Commander," he ordered. The sergeant swallowed. "He's not here." "Then bring me your highest authority," the judge said. The detective barked a laugh. "You don't get it, do you? There's no highest here. There's... who's useful?" The judge's voice did not change, but it felt heavier. "Then, you will build one." In a bright conference room high above the city, Stan Edgar sat at the head of a long table, with his hands folded like the world was never urgent. Around him, Vault executives spoke fast, flipping through charts and headlines. "Public reaction is split," one PR lead said. "Some see him as a real hero, others see him as a terrorist." A legal advisor slid a folder forward. "We can get a federal warrant if we classify his weapon as an illegal military-grade device." A security chief tapped the table. "We should put Noir on him full-time. We can take the gun, take the armor, and..." Edgar raised one finger, and the room fell quiet. "Not yet," Edgar said. The security chief frowned. "Sir?" Edgar looked at the screen showing the precinct clip, the helmet, the blinking red light, the cash on the desk, the word bravery. "He's not a wild animal," Edgar said calmly. "He's a system." The PR lead blinked. "A system?" Edgar nodded slightly. "He believes the world can be corrected if you apply enough pressure." A few people shifted uncomfortably, like the sentence had pointed at them. Edgar's voice stayed even. "If we rush, we turn him into a martyr. If we mishandle him, we make him look right." The legal advisor asked, "So what do we do?" Edgar's eyes didn't leave the screen. "We make him look wrong." He slid a second file across the table. It was labeled in clean, simple type. "Project Mirror." The PR lead's eyebrows lifted. "Deepfake?" Edgar didn't smile. "Narrative." The security chief leaned in. "We can stage an incident. Make it clean. Make it loud. Put him at the center of it." Edgar finally looked up, eyes calm and cold. "Not loud," he corrected. "Believable." He tapped the screen with one finger. "His weakness is not his body," Edgar said. "It is his rule." He paused. We will put him in a situation where his rule gets people hurt, Edgar said. Then we will show the world. That evening, Starlight found him before Vought could. Not in a tower, not in a stage-lit lobby, on a quiet street where the buildings were plain and the people kept there, heads down. He stood under a streetlight, helmet still on, looking at a map on a small screen mounted to his wrist. His motorcycle rested beside him like a trained animal. Starlight approached slowly, hands visible. She knew how to talk to dangerous people. She'd been trained to do it on camera. This was different. This was a person who didn't care about the camera at all. "I saw the precinct footage," she said. The helmet turned. "You are following me." "Yes," she admitted. "Because they're planning something." "They always plan," the judge said. Starlight took a careful breath. "They're going to frame you." The judge's posture didn't change. "On what charge?" Starlight blinked at the question. "That's not how it works here." The judge looked at her like that sentence was the real crime. "Then this world is broken." Starlight's throat tightened. "Yeah, it is." For a second, neither of them spoke. A car passed, music loud, driver staring at the helmet as if it was a monster. The judge watched the car go, then looked back at Starlight. "Why are you helping me?" Starlight's voice softened, but she kept it simple. "Because you're doing what I thought heroes did." The judge's reply came fast. "I am not a hero." Starlight frowned. "Then what are you?" "A function," he said. Starlight tried not to show how strange that sounded. "A function of what?" "The law," the judge said. "Duty. Order." Starlight swallowed. "Okay. Then, what's your name?" The helmet stayed still. Starlight waited. Finally, the judge spoke, like he was giving a fact to a file. "Dredd," he said. Starlight's eyes widened slightly, not because the name was dramatic, because it meant he was real. Names were for people who expected to live long enough to keep them. "Dredd," she repeated. "Okay." Dredd looked down at her like she was a witness. "You said they will frame me," Dredd said. "How?" Starlight shook her head. "I don't know yet. But I know them. They don't need the truth. They need a clip." Dredd's voice was flat. "Then I will collect my own clip." He tapped the side of his helmet. "Recording is continuous." Starlight nodded slowly. "That helps. But they can still bury it." Dredd turned his helmet toward the city skyline, where Vought Tower cut into the clouds. "Then we will dig," he said. Starlight hesitated, then said the next part, because it mattered. "You can't do this alone," she said. Dredd didn't argue. He didn't agree either. He just said, "I will not compromise." Starlight's mouth tightened. "Neither will I," she said, even though she knew she already had, 100 times. Dredd watched her. Then he spoke, quiet but firm. "Then you will be tested." Starlight nodded. "I know." Butcher chose his moment like he chose everything else. In the early morning, when the street was gray, and wet and tired. When the city hadn't decided what face to wear yet, Butcher stepped out of a shadowed doorway and blocked Dredd's path. Huey hung back with and Frenchie, hearts thumping like they were about to do something stupid. Because they were. Dredd stopped instantly, weight balanced, one hand near his holster. Butcher held his hands out, palms open, like he was unarmed. "All right, Judge," Butcher said, voice smooth. "You've made a splash." Dredd's helmet turned slightly. "Identify yourself." Butcher smiled. "Billy Butcher." Dredd didn't react to the name, but his helmet angled toward Huey's group, tracking the positions, the distance, the exits. "You are armed," Dredd said. Frenchie lifted his hands. "We are." "Tourists." Dredd ignored him. "State your purpose." Butcher stepped closer, stopping just outside arm's reach. I want the same thing you want." Dredd's voice was even. "Law." Butcher's smile cracked into something sharper. "Justice," he corrected. Dredd's helmet tilted. "Define." Butcher's eyes hardened. "Soups don't get to do whatever they want. Vought doesn't get to buy the world. People stop dying for their entertainment." Dredd's voice stayed calm. "Then present evidence. Make arrests." Butcher laughed once. No humor, just disbelief. "Arrests? Mate, you try to arrest Homelander, you'll get turned into paste." Huey flinched at the word. Dredd did not. "Then the system must adapt." Butcher leaned in, voice lower. "Or you adapt. Here's the real truth. There's no court. There's no honest chain. There's only force." Dredd's hand drifted closer to his holster. Not from fear, from the word. "Force," Dredd said. "Without law is tyranny." Butcher spread his arms. "Welcome to America." Dredd stared through the visor, and Huey felt for a second like the helmet was looking at his soul. "You operate outside the law, Dredd," said to Butcher. Butcher shrugged. "Because the law's been bought." Dredd's voice sharpened. "That does not grant you permission to become criminals." Butcher's grin returned. "See, that's the problem. You keep thinking the rules matter. They don't. Not to Vought." Dredd took one step forward. "Then I will make them matter." Butcher's eyes flicked to the badge. "How?" Dredd didn't answer with a speech. He answered with action. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small paper slip, already printed, already filled. He tore it cleanly and held it out. Butcher stared. "What's that?" "A summons," Dredd said. "For conspiracy, unlawful violence, and obstruction." Huey's mouth fell open. You wrote him a ticket?" Dredd didn't look at Huey. "Notice of charges." Frenchie let out a small sound that might have been laughter. "He gives you paper." Butcher took the slip between two fingers, like it might bite him. He read it, then looked up, eyes wide with a mix of anger and surprise. "You're serious," Butcher said. "Yes," Dredd replied. Butcher's face twisted. "You can't summons me." Dredd's voice was simple. "I just did." The running gag hit harder than any punch. A man was trying to do law in a world that treated law like a joke. Butcher crumpled the slip and tossed it. Dredd's hand snapped up and caught it out of the air like it mattered. It did. "You will appear," Dredd said. Butcher's voice dropped into a warning. "You keep pushing like this, you'll get people killed." Dredd's answer was instant. "People are already dead." Butcher's eyes flashed. "Then stop playing cop and start acting like war." Dredd stepped closer. The air between them went tight. "I do not wage war," Dredd said. "I enforce." Butcher stared at him for a long beat, then gave a small nod like he had found the shape of the man. "Fine," Butcher said. "Enforce this then. Vought's got a secret facility. Records, bodies, proof. You want evidence? I can take you there." Huey's heart jumped. "Butcher!" Butcher lifted a finger, not looking back. "Later." Dredd's helmet angled. "Why offer?" Butcher's smile was thin. "Because you're a nightmare to them. And nightmares are useful." Dredd's voice stayed cold. "I will not be used." Butcher shrugged. "Then use me. Your choice." Dredd held still, processing the trap inside the offer, the chance inside the trap, the fact that either way, the city was bleeding. "Provide coordinates," Dredd said. Butcher's grin widened. Dredd cut him off. "And understand this." Butcher's smile paused. "If you commit murder," Dredd said, "I will arrest you." Butcher barked a laugh. Yeah. Dredd didn't move. "I will." Butcher met the visor, and for a second, his grin faded, because he believed him. Then Butcher turned, and walked away like he owned the street. Huey let out a shaky breath he didn't know he was holding. Watched Dredd carefully. "You really gonna work with him?" Dredd's voice was flat. "I will observe him. I will use the path to reach the crime." Frenchie muttered, "This is going to be terrible." Huey whispered, "This is going to be terrible." Dredd looked at them. "Move along." And somehow, they did. The frame job started with a place that looked safe. A shopping center, bright lights, families. A Santa setup, even though it wasn't December anymore, because marketing never cared about the calendar. A stage stood in the middle with a Vought banner and a smiling host. A community safety event, the posters said. Huey watched it on a screen first, because Vought wanted people to watch. A-Train was there, grinning and bouncing like he had too much energy. The Deep stood beside him, waving like a bored prince. A camera crew moved around them like orbiting moons. Then the screaming started, not from fans, from the back of the crowd. A man shoved through with a gun, another right behind him, a third. Masks on, panic spreading. The host stumbled backward. The camera jerked. People ran. Huey's stomach dropped. Oh no. MM's eyes narrowed. That's staged. Frenchie pointed at the angle. Look, they are filming already. Butcher watched, expression unreadable. Vought's putting him on the spot. On the screen, the masked gunman fired into the ceiling. Dust rained down. People screamed louder. Then a helmet appeared at the edge of the camera frame. The judge walked into the chaos like he was walking into a courtroom. He didn't hesitate. He didn't shout. He didn't pose. He moved. His gun came up. A snap. One gunman's weapon flew out of his hand. Another snap. The second gunman stumbled, clutching his arm. The crowd surged, trying to escape. Kids cried. A stroller tipped. A mother screamed a name. The judge pivoted and moved fast, stepping between the gunman and the civilians. He fired smoke. He fired flash. He directed people with sharp commands. Exit left. Stay low. Keep moving. He sounded like he had done this 1,000 times. And then the clip cut. The screen went black for half a second. When it came back, the angle was different. The audio was clipped. The smoke was gone. The camera now showed a single frozen moment. A civilian on the ground, blood near their shoulder. The judge's gun pointed in that direction. The voiceover slammed in immediately. Breaking. The armed judge opens fire at a Vote community event. Huey shouted, "No, that's not what happened!" But it didn't matter what happened. It mattered what was shown. On the next channel, the same still image was used again and again like a hammer. On social media, the hashtag flipped in under an hour. From real judge to for judge killer. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. The city felt like it was tilting. Dredd stood on a rooftop not far from the mall, watching emergency vehicles arrive. He could hear the crowd from here, a distant roar of fear and anger. His helmet recording had the full event, the real event. He had watched the masked gunmen move in ways that looked trained. He had watched the camera crew stay too steady. He had watched the civilian fall in a spot that made a perfect picture. He had also watched a child trip, and he had moved without thinking to pull the child up and push them toward safety. He did not fire at the child. He did not fire at civilians. The injury on the screen was from a gunman's wild shot that had hit someone during the first second of panic. Dredd knew that. Vought knew that too. He looked down at the city and understood something bitter and simple. In this world, evidence did not automatically become truth. Truth had to fight. Starlight landed quietly on the rooftop behind him. "You saw it," she said. "Yes," Dredd replied. "They're going to come for you," Starlight said. "Hard." Dredd's voice was flat. "They already have." Starlight stepped closer. "What are you going to do?" Dredd stood very still. Then he said the thing that sounded like a pivot inside his own head. I will build a lawful foothold, he said. Starlight frowned. What does that mean? It means I stop asking this world for permission, Dredd said, and I start creating a chain that cannot be purchased. Starlight swallowed. How? Dredd turned his helmet toward her. We find witnesses who cannot be silenced. We find documents they cannot burn fast enough. We record everything. He looked back at the city again, at the screens glowing in windows, at the endless noise. Law is not a feeling, Dredd said. It is a structure. Starlight's voice shook just a little. And Vought is going to try to break it. Dredd's answer was simple. Then they will be judged. The first thing Dredd did was not hunt Homelander. He hunted paper. It felt strange even to Huey when they started moving with him in the days that followed. Not charging a tower, not planting bombs, not blackmailing a soup, going to places with fluorescent lights and tired workers and long lines. A courthouse, a records office, a public complaint desk with a cracked plastic sign that said, "Please wait to be called." Huey stood in line behind Dredd and felt like he was watching a lion pretend to be a commuter. A clerk looked up when they reached the front. She saw the helmet and froze like her brain had hit a wall. She said. Sir? You can't. I'm filing charges, Dredd said. The clerk blinked. Against who? Dredd slid a stack of printed reports forward. Each one had timestamps, locations, descriptions, witness statements, names when he had them, gaps marked clearly when he did not. Huey stared at the stack. He couldn't help it. Tor whispered, "You wrote all that?" Dredd didn't look at him. "It is required." The clerk flipped the top page with shaking fingers. This is about Vought." "Yes," Dredd said. The clerk swallowed. "Sir, I can't take this." Dredd's helmet tilted. "Why?" The clerk's eyes darted to a camera in the ceiling, then back. "Because it'll disappear." Dredd leaned in slightly. "That is not an answer." The clerk's voice dropped. "Because I like being alive." Huey felt his throat tighten. That was the real law here. Dredd stayed still for a long beat. Then he did something Huey didn't expect. He stepped back. He lowered his voice. "What is your name?" Dredd asked. The clerk hesitated, then said, "Marisol." Dredd nodded once, like he had filed it. "Marisol, you have witnessed obstruction." Marisol's eyes widened. You have," Dredd said. "And you are afraid. That fear is evidence." Huey watched Marisol's hand shake over the papers and felt anger flare in his chest. Not at her, at the world. Butcher waited near the door, impatient, like the building itself was insulting him. "We're wasting time," Butcher muttered. Dredd turned his helmet toward him. "Time is the foundation." Butcher rolled his eyes. "Your foundation's made of wet cardboard in this country." Dredd didn't argue. He took the papers back, turned, and walked out. Outside on the steps, Starlight waited with her hood up, trying not to be seen. "We need a different path," she said quietly. Dredd's voice was firm. "We need honest nodes." Huey blinked. "Nodes?" Dredd looked at him like he was slow. "People, offices, places, any part of the chain that still functions." MM nodded slowly. "He's right. Find one honest person. You can build around them." Butcher snorted. "Good luck." Dredd turned his helmet, scanning the street, the passing cars, the faces. He looked like he was calculating a map inside his head. "We will go lower," he said. Frenchie frowned. "Lower?" "Where Vought hides bodies," Dredd said. "Where they store mistakes." Butcher's mouth curled. "Now you're talking." They went at night, because Vought owned the day. The location Butcher provided wasn't a tower. It wasn't a lab with bright lights and dramatic alarms. It was a private prison on the edge of the city, with a clean sign and a polite logo that didn't say Vought, but might as well have. High fences, cameras, guard towers. From a distance, it looked like normal punishment. Up close, it looked like storage. Huey's hands were sweaty inside his gloves. He hated this part. The waiting, the quiet, the moment before everything broke. Dredd lay on a rooftop across the road, looking through a small scope device. His helmet didn't move much. He was too still for someone about to walk into a prison. Butcher crouched beside him, whispering. They keep assets here. People who saw too much. People who failed. People who didn't fit the brand. Dredd's voice was flat. Illegal detention? Butcher shrugged. It's Tuesday. Adjusted his pack. We go in, we get proof, we get out. Dredd looked at him. And we do not kill. Butcher's jaw tightened. We'll see. Dredd's helmet turned slowly to him. Butcher held the visor's gaze for a second, then looked away first. Fine, Butcher muttered. No killin'. Unless… No, Dredd said. Butcher's lips pressed into a line. He hated being told no. Huey hated that part of him agreed with Dredd. They moved in the way the boys always moved, messy, clever, and fueled by nerves. Frenchie cut power to one camera loop for 12 seconds. Kimiko went first, silent as a shadow, climbing the fence like it was nothing. Followed with steady hands. Huey went after, heart slamming in his chest. Dredd went last. He didn't climb like a gymnast. He climbed like a soldier, efficient, heavy, certain. He dropped on the other side without a sound that mattered. Inside, the compound smelled like bleach and metal. They slipped along the back wall and reached a service door. Frenchie worked the lock. Dredd held security angles, head turning in small, controlled motions. He was not twitchy. He was not scared. He was focused like a knife. The door clicked open. They entered. At first, it looked like any institution. Long hall, white walls, a posted schedule, a poster about mental health with smiling faces that didn't belong here. Then they reached the lower wing. The air changed. It got colder, and not from the temperature. It felt like the building didn't want anyone to know what was down here. They passed a door with no label. Butcher nodded at it. That's the one. Frenchie cracked it. They stepped into a storage room filled with filing cabinets and server racks. Boxes stacked to the ceiling. Labels in neat print. Huey's mouth went dry. It wasn't dramatic. It was worse, because it was organized. Dredd walked to a cabinet and yanked it open with a firm pull. Inside were folders, names, dates, photos, children. Huey felt his stomach flip. Oh my God. MM's face went hard, like he was trying to keep his anger from turning into something reckless. Butcher's eyes burned. Told you. Dredd didn't react the way Huey expected. No shouting, no shaking. His helmet stayed still. His hands moved. He pulled a folder. Read. Pulled another. Read. His breathing stayed even. But Huey noticed the small change. The way Dredd's grip tightened on the paper. The way his jaw sat under the helmet. Evidence, Dredd said. We take copies. We take originals if possible. Frenchie rushed to the servers, plugging in a drive. I can pull. A sound cut through the hall outside. Boots. Fast. Many. Whispered. We got company. Butcher smirked like he had been waiting for it. Of course we do. Dredd's helmet turned toward the door. Positions. Kimiko moved to the side of the doorway, crouched, ready to strike. Took the far corner with a weapon ready. Huey pressed himself behind a stack of boxes, breathing too loud. Dredd stayed in the center, like he wanted the first look. The door swung open. Black Noir walked in first. Behind him came armed guards with rifles up and eyes wide, like they didn't want to be here. Noir didn't hesitate. He threw a knife. Dredd's hand snapped up, and the knife hit his forearm armor and bounced off. Dredd fired instantly. A stun round snapped through the air and hit Noir in the chest. Noir's body jerked, but he didn't go down. He surged forward anyway, moving like pain didn't matter. Kimiko sprang out and slammed into him, fists and elbows flying. Noir met her like a wall, meeting another wall. They crashed into a table. Files exploded into the air like snow. Guards opened fire. Bullets hammered the room, tearing boxes, sparking off metal. Dredd moved like he had practiced in worse places. He stepped into cover, fired smoke, then fired a second round that burst into blinding light near the guards' faces. 2 guards cried out and stumbled. Dredd didn't waste the opening on killing. He shouted, "Drop your weapons!" His voice cut clean through the chaos, and for 1 second, one guard actually hesitated. Then, Butcher fired a warning shot into the ceiling, and the guard panicked and raised his rifle again. Dredd's gun snapped, and the rifle flew out of the guard's hands. "Comply," Dredd ordered. The guard dropped to his knees, shaking. Huey stared. In a room full of armed men, Dredd was still trying to make arrests. Kimiko slammed Noir's head into a cabinet. Noir didn't make a sound. He just grabbed her wrist and twisted, trying to break her. Kimiko snarled and bit his arm through the suit fabric. Noir drove a knee into her ribs. Kimiko took it and hit back harder. Dragged Huey up by the collar. "Move! Frenchie's got what he can." Frenchie yanked the drive free. "Not all, but enough." Butcher shoved a stack of papers into his bag, eyes wild. "More. Grab more." Dredd stepped between Butcher and the door. "No," Dredd said. Butcher glared. "We need it." Dredd's helmet tilted toward a side corridor where a small sound had started. A whimper. A human sound. Dredd moved toward it instantly. He kicked open a nearby door. Inside were cells. Not normal cells. Not with bars and a bench. Rooms with glass fronts, like display boxes. In one, a young woman sat curled up on the floor, eyes huge. In another, a teenage boy stood shaking, hands up like he expected pain. They weren't attacking. They weren't roaring. They were trapped. Huey's throat closed. "They're prisoners." Dredd's voice went cold. "Illegally detained." Butcher's eyes flicked between the files in the cells, and Huey saw the war inside him. Evidence, people. Dredd didn't hesitate. He shot the lock panel with a precise round that blew it without killing the power to the whole wing. The door slid open. "Move!" Dredd ordered the prisoners. "Now!" They stared, not understanding. Starlight's voice wasn't here to soften it, so Huey did it. He stepped forward with his hands out. "Hey," Huey said, voice shaking. "It's okay. We're getting you out." The teenage boy blinked fast. "Is this... what?" Huey swallowed. "Yeah." The boy's eyes filled with tears. He moved. Alarm lights started flashing. A voice boomed from speakers, calm and dead. "Security breach. Lockdown engaged." The exit slammed shut in the distance with heavy clunks. Butcher swore. "They're sealing us in." Dredd's helmet snapped toward the ceiling. "They will destroy evidence." Frenchie's face went pale. "They will destroy everything." Kimiko and Noir crashed through the doorway into the cell hall, still fighting. Noir slammed her into a wall. Kimiko headbutted him and staggered back. Noir's head turned slightly, like he was listening to an order. Then he broke away from Kimiko and moved toward the prisoners. Not to help. To erase. Dredd stepped into his path. Noir lunged. Dredd fired a sonic burst at close range. The air seemed to punch outward. Noir staggered, hands flying to his head. For the first time, he looked slowed. Dredd grabbed him by the collar and drove him back into the wall hard enough to crack tile. "Stand down," Dredd ordered. Noir didn't. He swung. Dredd took the hit on his armor and answered with a short, brutal elbow to Noir's throat area, then a knee to his side. Noir fell to one knee, not defeated, not even close, but paused. That was enough. Dredd turned and shouted, "Evacuate!" Grabbed a prisoner under each arm and hauled them toward the service corridor. Huey guided the teenage boy, trying to keep him moving. Even as panic rose again, Butcher stood frozen in the file room doorway, eyes locked on the cabinets. "We can't leave it," Butcher growled. Dredd stepped up beside him. "We are leaving." Butcher's face twisted. "This is the point of all of it." Dredd's voice was sharp. "Those are lives." Butcher's eyes flashed. "And if we don't take the proof, Vought keeps doing it." Dredd turned his helmet to him slowly, and the silence felt like a judgment. "You will not trade people for paper," Dredd said. Butcher's jaw worked like he wanted to bite the words in half. Then Huey shouted from down the corridor, voice cracking. "Butcher! Please!" Butcher flinched. He grabbed one last folder, stuffed it into his bag, and stormed after them, cursing under his breath. Behind them, the building's speakers changed tone. "This facility is now under purge protocol." Frenchie's eyes went wide. "Purge? Purge means—" A low rumble ran through the floor. Not an explosion yet. A warning. A promise. Dredd looked back once, not at the files, at the cell wing, at the rooms that had held people like objects. His helmet didn't show emotion, but his voice carried something new. Rage. "Vought," he said quietly, "is guilty." They ran. They reached a maintenance stairwell that led down to a service tunnel. The tunnel shook as the purge began above. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lights flickered. Huey's lungs burned. The teenage boy stumbled. Huey grabbed him and pulled. A door at the end of the tunnel was locked. Frenchie slammed into it. "No, no, no!" Dredd stepped forward. He didn't shoot it blindly. He looked, found the hinge points, fired 2 controlled rounds. The door fell inward with a heavy crash. They spilled out into open night air behind the facility, where a drainage ditch cut through grass like a scar. They kept moving, half running, half dragging the freed prisoners. Behind them, the prison's lower wing lit up, with a hard white flash, then a deep boom that rolled across the ground like thunder. The sky above the compound glowed for a second. Then it went dark again, like it never happened. Huey collapsed behind a berm, gasping, shaking so hard he couldn't stop. Crouched beside him, eyes scanning for pursuit. "You okay?" Huey nodded, but he wasn't sure. We got him out." The teenage boy sat in the mud, staring back at the smoke, tears sliding down his face. Butcher stood with his bag clutched tight, breathing like he wanted to scream. Frenchie looked at his drive like it was a piece of fragile glass. "Not all," he whispered. "But something." Kimiko crouched nearby, clutching her ribs, watching the dark tree line for Noir. Dredd stood last, facing the smoke. He didn't look relieved. He looked committed. Starlight's light flared in the sky above them, and she dropped down onto the grass like an angel who didn't feel holy anymore. Her eyes went straight to the freed prisoners. "You did it," she breathed. Dredd's voice was flat. "We did enough." Starlight looked at him, then past him, to the burning compound. "They'll spin this," she said. Dredd turned his helmet toward her. "Let them." Butcher barked. "You say that like it's fine." Dredd's voice cut through him. "I say it because the truth exists." He tapped the side of his helmet. "My recording includes the purge, the cells, the prisoners." Starlight's hope flickered again. "That's huge." MM's face stayed hard. "Unless nobody sees it." Dredd looked out at the city lights in the distance, then back at the small group, the freed prisoners, the exhausted team. "We will make a chain," Dredd said. "Not one office, not one clip. A chain." Huey stared up at him, mud on his hands, fear in his chest. "How?" Huey asked. Dredd's answer was simple, but it sounded like the start of a war that wasn't fought with lasers. "Witnesses," Dredd said. "Documents. Records stored in places Vought cannot control at once." Butcher scoffed, but it sounded weaker now, less sure. Starlight nodded slowly. "And people," she said. "You'll need people." Dredd's helmet turned toward her, then toward the freed prisoners, then toward Huey and MM. "Then we will find them," Dredd said. Above them, far away, Vought Tower stood tall and clean as ever. And inside it, someone was already watching the smoke from a screen and writing a new label in a file. Not vigilante, not hero. A problem with a name, a structure, a judge. Dredd mounted his bike a few minutes later, engine rumbling low. Teenagers would have begged for a selfie. Reporters would have begged for a quote. None of that was here in the mud and smoke. Only people who had seen what Vought kept hidden. Dredd looked down at them. "Move," he said. And this time it didn't mean go away. It meant live. They moved. And the city, whether it wanted to or not, started to change around that one stubborn motion. 2 weeks later, the city had learned a new habit. When people heard sirens, they still reached for their phones. But now, they also looked both ways. They looked for a black helmet. They looked for a heavy motorcycle. They looked for a man who didn't wave. They looked for someone who might actually stop the bleeding. Judge Dredd did not sleep much, not because he was restless, because there was always another call. He kept a routine anyway. In the morning, he checked his gear with the same order every time. Armor seals, ammo types, bike systems, recording storage. He printed fresh stacks of charge sheets on a small portable device Frenchie had found for him. The papers looked plain, like boring paperwork. In this world, boring paperwork was a weapon. Then he went out. Not to chase fame, not to chase Homelander. He went where the system was weakest, a corner where a gang collected, protection money. A block where a landlord threatened families, a clinic where a guard lost patient files. Dredd didn't solve everything with a gun. He didn't even want to. He solved things by making people do steps they hadn't done in years. Witness statements, names, times, photographs, clear records. Every time he arrested someone, he said the charges out loud. He didn't do it for drama. He did it for the record. The running gag followed him like a stray dog. A teenager would sprint beside the Lawmaster bike and shout, "Say it! Say you're the law!" Dredd would not even turn his helmet. "Move along." A man in a suit would show up with a smile and a camera crew and say, "Judge Dredd, can we get a quick statement about your mission?" Dredd would answer, "No." A lady with a podcast mic would ask, "What's under the helmet? What's your real face?" Dredd would look at her for 1 second and say, "Obstruction." Then he would keep walking. Sometimes the cameras followed anyway. Huey did too. He didn't do it because he was fearless. He did it because he didn't know how to stop once he saw the prisoners in those glass rooms. He couldn't go back to being a guy who just watched. In the safe house, Dredd had turned one wall into a board. It wasn't flashy like in movies. It was a map, a list, names, files, connections. MM helped him set it up. Frenchie made the tech work. Kimiko sat in the corner and watched, silent and sharp, like she was guarding the room with her eyes. Butcher hated it. "Look at you lot," Butcher said one night, pacing. "Playing office." Dredd didn't look up from a folder. "This is procedure?" Butcher scoffed. "This is a funeral. Vought will bury you with paperwork." Dredd set the folder down with a firm tap. "Then we will dig our way out." Huey watched Butcher's face. He saw something there he didn't like. Butcher wasn't just angry, he was jealous. Because Dredd's way had something Butcher's way didn't. A path. A reason that didn't change depending on who had the bigger gun. It scared Butcher. even if he wouldn't admit it. That night, Starlight arrived in plain clothes with her hair tucked under a cap. She brought two things, a small bag of burner phones and a look that said she was tired of being careful. "I got you a channel," she said quietly. Frowned. "A channel?" Starlight nodded. "A few. People who hate Vought but still have platforms. Independent reporters, lawyers, a couple of old-school cops who got forced out." Butcher leaned back in his chair. "Cops?" Starlight shot him a look. "Not everyone is dirty." Dredd's helmet turned to her. "Names?" Starlight slid a list across the table. "They'll meet, but they won't meet here, and they won't meet if they think you're a stunt." Dredd's voice was flat. "I'm not a stunt." Huey almost laughed, but it came out like a nervous breath. Starlight's mouth tugged for half a second. "Yeah, that's why they'll meet." Dredd glanced at Huey. "You." Huey blinked. "Me?" "You will go," Dredd said. "You speak as a civilian." Huey swallowed. "I am a civilian." Butcher snorted. "Not anymore, mate." Huey hated that Butcher was right. Dredd pointed at the bag of phones. "We will distribute evidence in pieces. Multiple sources. Multiple backups." Frenchie nodded eagerly. "A hydra. Cut one head. More remain." Dredd didn't react to the metaphor. "A chain," he corrected. "A chain with many links." Starlight's eyes stayed on the helmet. "They're going to try to buy you, or break you." Dredd's voice was calm. "Let them try." He didn't say it like a challenge. He said it like a forecast. The next morning, the first offer came. It arrived politely, like a business meeting. A black car rolled up beside a quiet city park. Two men in clean suits stepped out and checked their watches, as if time was something they owned. One opened the back door. Stan Edgar stepped out like he had all the time in the world. Huey watched from across the path behind a tree, phone in hand, trying not to breathe too loud. Stood near him, eyes scanning. Starlight stayed farther back, hood up, watching the street. Dredd waited on the walkway near a bench, helmet on, hands relaxed. Edgar approached alone. No guards visible. That was the point. "Judge," Edgar said. Dredd didn't offer a greeting. "State your purpose." Edgar's face didn't change. "I'm here to solve a problem." Dredd's helmet tilted slightly. "I'm not your problem to solve." Edgar folded his hands behind his back and looked out at the water. Ducks drifted by like the world was normal. "You are new to this place," Edgar said, "and you have created turbulence." Dredd's voice was flat. "Crime creates turbulence." Edgar nodded as if Dredd had said something interesting, not something accusatory. "I'm offering structure, resources, legitimacy." He turned his head slightly, still not looking at Dredd like Dredd was a person, more like a tool that could be valuable. "We can give you a task force," Edgar said. "A legal framework, special authority, a budget, protection." Dredd didn't move. "Under whose oversight?" Edgar paused, then said the truth because he didn't need to lie in his own mind. "Mine," Edgar said. Dredd's answer came at once. "No." Edgar's eyes didn't flicker. "You didn't let me finish." Dredd's voice stayed cold. "I heard enough." Edgar turned fully to face him now. "You can continue as you are. An armed man with a slogan. A nuisance. We can make the world fear you." Dredd's helmet turned slightly, taking in the park, the people passing, the children near a fountain. "Fear does not change the law," Dredd said. Edgar's mouth tightened, almost amused. "Here, Judge, the law is what people believe." Dredd's reply was steady. "Then you are an enemy of law." Edgar held that for a beat. Then he sighed softly, like a man disappointed in an employee. "You are sincere," Edgar said. "That makes you rare." He stepped closer by one pace. It also makes you easy to predict. Dredd didn't step back. Edgar continued, voice still calm. You won't kill. You won't bend. You won't lie. That means I can build a box around you. Dredd's helmet angled. Try. Edgar's eyes narrowed a fraction. We already did. The mall. The prison. The headlines. Dredd's voice did not rise. And I recorded the truth. Edgar's gaze sharpened. And did it matter? Huey felt his stomach drop. Edgar wasn't boasting. He was asking like a teacher testing a student. Dredd answered anyway. Yes, Edgar nodded once. Good. Then you understand the real battlefield. He reached into his coat and pulled out a card. No logo. No name. Just a number. If you change your mind, Edgar said, call. If you don't, the next time we meet will not be polite. He set the card on the bench and walked away. Dredd didn't touch it. Huey watched Edgar get back into the car and leave without ever looking over his shoulder. Whispered, That man is ice. Huey swallowed. He didn't even threaten him with a gun. M's eyes stayed on Dredd. He threatened him with the world. When Edgar was gone, Starlight approached Dredd. You didn't take the card, she said. Dredd's voice was flat. I do not accept bribes. Starlight's mouth tightened. That wasn't a bribe. That was a leash. Dredd turned his helmet to her. Then I will not wear it. Starlight let out a small breath. Okay. Next problem. Dredd's helmet tilted. There will be more. He was right. That same night, Victoria Newman requested a private conversation. Not through vote, through the kind of channels that made it feel official. A community center, a small crowd outside, police standing nearby, uncertain who to obey, a few reporters waiting like vultures. Newman walked in wearing a simple coat, smiling like she cared. Huey saw her on TV all the time. She had that face that made people relax. In person, Huey felt something else. A weight. Newman held her hands up slightly when she saw Dredd, like she was showing she wasn't armed. Judge, she said warmly, thank you for coming. Dredd didn't return warmth. State your purpose. Newman's smile held. We have a crisis of trust in our institutions. People are scared. They need answers. Dredd's helmet turned toward the cameras outside. Then don't meet in secret. Newman didn't blink. This isn't secret, it's controlled. Dredd's voice stayed hard. Controlled by who? Newman stepped closer, voice softening into something like concern. By people who want to keep this city from burning. Dredd's helmet tilted. Names. Newman laughed lightly as if Dredd was being charming. You and I both know how complicated that is. Dredd didn't move. Truth is not complicated. Newman's smile thinned, just a hair. Judge, you can do real good here. You can be part of reform. Dredd's answer came fast. Reform requires arrests. Newman nodded as if agreeing with a child. Yes, but it also requires timing. Strategy. Dredd's voice was steady. Strategy without law is manipulation. Newman's eyes stayed bright. Call it what you want. I'm offering you a seat at the table. Dredd's helmet turned slightly. What is the price? Newman's smile returned fully, like she loved the question. Just focus on the obvious criminals. Gangs. Street violence. Leave certain institutions alone while we build something sustainable. Dredd took a step forward. The room felt colder. Name the institutions, Dredd said. Newman's gaze held. You're direct. Yes, Dredd replied. Newman's voice softened again. There are sensitive investigations. If you go digging in the wrong places, you will get people killed. You will get yourself killed. And then what changes? Dredd's voice was flat. I will not stop because you are afraid. Newman's eyes flicked for the first time, like something inside her wanted to flare. Huey, watching from the side of the room, felt his skin prickle. Newman breathed in, then smiled again. "You're brave," she said. "Or stubborn?" Dredd didn't answer. Newman stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Let me be clear. You will not win by force. You will win by building allies." Dredd's helmet turned slightly. "Are you an ally?" Newman looked straight into the visor. "I could be, if you understand limits." Dredd's reply was instant. "Law has no special limits for the powerful." Newman's smile faded fully now, replaced by a clean, sharp look. "Then you will make enemies," she said quietly. Dredd's voice stayed the same. "Then they will be charged." Newman held his gaze for a long beat. Then she stepped back, smile returning like a mask snapping into place. "Thank you for your time," she said, loud enough for the cameras outside to hear. "I hope we can work together." She walked out. Huey exhaled like he'd been underwater. Starlight leaned close to Huey and whispered, "Did you feel that?" Huey nodded, throat tight. "Yeah, like she's hiding a knife." Dredd watched Newman leave without moving. Then he said, "She is lying." Frowned. "About what?" Dredd's voice was flat. "About being afraid." He turned toward the exit. "Move." They moved. The third offer didn't arrive politely. It arrived like a storm. It happened on a rooftop, because Homelander liked rooftops. He liked looking down. He liked controlling the sky. Dredd had gone up there alone, not because he wanted to. Because he understood a simple rule. If Homelander wanted private, Homelander would get private, unless someone could stop him. No one could. The wind hit Dredd's armor and made his coat snap. The city lights spread below like a carpet of tiny screens. Homelander floated above the edge with his arms crossed, smiling like he was about to start a show. "There he is," Homelander said. "My new favorite guy." Dredd didn't look impressed. "Identify yourself for the record." Homelander laughed. "Still doing that. Still doing the little cop thing." Dredd's voice stayed hard. "State your purpose." Homelander dropped down to stand on the rooftop, boots touching concrete like gravity loved him. "I'm curious," Homelander said. "What's your deal? You don't want money? You don't want fame? You don't want power?" He leaned in slightly, eyes bright. "So what do you want?" Dredd's answer was simple. "Order." Homelander's smile widened. "Yes, exactly. Order." He spread his arms like he was presenting the city. "This place needs order. It needs someone strong." He pointed at himself with a thumb. "That's me." Then he pointed at Dredd. "And you could be with me." Dredd's voice was flat. "No." Homelander blinked, smile twitching. "You didn't even think about it." Dredd didn't move. "There's nothing to consider." Homelander's eyes narrowed. "Do you know how many people beg for a spot near me?" Dredd's tone didn't change. "They are weak." Homelander's smile turned sharp. "Careful." Dredd stepped forward, boots heavy. "You are guilty." Homelander's jaw tightened. "You keep saying that." Dredd's voice stayed steady. "You kill. You threaten. You act above law." Homelander took one step closer. The air seemed to press in. "You don't get to judge me," Homelander whispered. Dredd's voice didn't shake. "I do." Homelander stared at him like he wanted to burn a hole through the helmet. Then he laughed again, loud and bright, like the laugh could wipe the tension away. "Okay," Homelander said. "New plan." He moved fast. Not a punch. Not a kill. He grabbed Dredd by the collar and lifted him off the roof, holding him out over open air. Below them, the street was far away. Cars were tiny. People were dots. Homelander smiled right into the visor. "You want to know what real power is?" Dredd's hand stayed calm on Homelander's wrist. He didn't thrash. He didn't plead. "I know what power is," Dredd said. Homelander's eyes flashed. "Oh yeah? Tell me." Dredd's voice was flat as stone. "Power is what you use when you have no law." Homelander's smile froze. For half a second, Huey's face flashed in Homelander's head. Starlight's eyes. The cameras. The word, guilty. Homelander tightened his grip just enough to make it hurt. "Say one more thing like that," Homelander whispered. "And I drop you." Dredd's voice stayed even. "Do it." Homelander blinked. He didn't expect that. He expected fear. He expected bargaining. He expected worship. He didn't get any of it. Homelander's mouth twitched like a small crack in glass. He pulled Dredd back onto the roof and shoved him down. Dredd landed on his feet, heavy and controlled. Homelander stared. "What are you?" Dredd's answer was simple. "A judge." Homelander's smile tried to return. It didn't fully work. "Fine," Homelander said. "Then here's your choice." He leaned closer, voice low. "Join me. Become my law. Or keep doing your little paper games and watch everyone you care about get crushed." Dredd's helmet turned slightly. "You will not threaten civilians." Homelander laughed, but it sounded thin. "I'm not threatening civilians. I'm threatening you." Dredd's voice stayed hard. "You do not control me." Homelander's eyes glowed faintly. Heat, building. Then a bright flare cut across the rooftop. Starlight landed between them, light still dancing around her hands. "Back off," she snapped. Homelander's eyes snapped to her. "Annie, what did I say about staying out of it?" Starlight didn't flinch. "You're not dropping him." Homelander smiled at her like she was cute. "Watch me." Starlight's light brightened. "Then do it," she said. "In front of me. And then see what happens." Homelander stared. He could kill them both. He knew it. They knew it. But something else was there too. The city. The cameras he couldn't fully see. The risk. The image. Homelander's smile returned, careful and cruel. "Okay," he said. "I'll go." He floated backward, eyes locked on Dredd. "This isn't over," Homelander said softly. Dredd's reply came at once. "No." Homelander vanished into the sky. Starlight exhaled like her lungs had been locked. She turned to Dredd. "You can't do that alone," she said again. Dredd's voice was flat. "I did not ask for help." Starlight's eyes flashed. "You didn't have to. People still care." Dredd looked at her for a long beat. Then he said, "You were tested." Starlight frowned. "And?" Dredd's voice stayed steady. "You acted." Starlight swallowed. "So, I passed?" Dredd didn't answer that. He just turned and walked toward the stairwell. "Move," he said. This time, Starlight followed. The trap came 2 days later, in daylight, because Vought wanted daylight. A public safety hearing was announced at City Hall. Big banners, big promises. Vought-sponsored community partners, police lines, media rows. It looked official. That was the point. Dredd didn't want to go. Not because he feared speeches, because he knew stages were built to control outcomes. But the hearing was also a magnet for witnesses, for cameras that were not all owned by Vought. And Vought had been pushing a message all week. The judge refuses accountability. Dredd didn't refuse accountability. He demanded it. So he went. He walked up the steps of City Hall in full armor, helmet on, lawgiver holstered, but visible. The crowd roared as if they were watching a prize fight. Some cheered, some booed. A man shouted, "Say the line!" Dredd didn't turn. "Move along." Reporters shoved microphones forward. "Judge, are you here to apologize?" Dredd didn't slow. "No." Inside, the hearing room was packed. Officials sat at a long table looking tense and important. A Vought advisor sat behind them smiling gently, as if Vought had always belonged there. Huey sat in the back row with a small camera hidden in his bag, hands sweating. MM sat beside him, eyes scanning exits. Frenchie watched the vents and corners like he expected a snake. Butcher stood against the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. Dredd stepped into the center aisle like he was entering a courtroom. An official cleared his throat and spoke loudly. "We are here today to address the threat posed by the armed individual calling himself Judge Dredd," Dredd said. The room stilled. The official blinked, surprised Dredd had offered a full name. "Calling himself Judge Dredd," the official repeated. The Vought advisor smiled wider, as if the name was the reveal they wanted. Dredd's helmet turned toward the table. "Begin." A few people laughed nervously. The official tried to regain control. "We have concerns regarding your unilateral use of force." Dredd's voice was flat. "I use lawful force to stop crimes." The official waved papers. "You are not recognized by any agency." Dredd's reply was immediate. "Then recognize your failure." The room erupted in murmurs. The Vought advisor leaned forward and said gently, "Judge, perhaps you could explain where you got your authority." Dredd turned his helmet toward him. "Name." The advisor blinked. "I'm—" "Name," Dredd repeated, and the second time it sounded like a demand that couldn't be dodged. The advisor's smile tightened. "Mr. Adler," Dredd's voice stayed hard. "Mr. Adler, you have no authority." Adler's smile turned pained. "We're simply trying to keep people safe." At that moment, a shout came from the balcony. A man in a hoodie stood up, arm raised, holding something dark. Huey's heart stopped. For 1 second, Huey thought it was a gun. Then he saw wires. A small device. A bomb. The room snapped into panic like a rope breaking. People screamed. Chairs scraped. Officials ducked. Security surged. The man shouted, "This is on you, Judge! This is what you cause!" Cameras swung. Every lens found Dredd. This was the clip Vought wanted. Dredd didn't run. He moved. He sprinted up the aisle toward the balcony stairs, fast and heavy. He didn't draw the lawgiver. He didn't fire into a crowd. He shouted, "Clear the exits! Move!" His voice cut through panic because it didn't sound scared. It sounded certain. Grabbed Huey and pulled him down low. "Stay." Butcher pushed forward, eyes locked on the bomber. His hand went toward a hidden weapon. Dredd saw him. "Do not!" Dredd barked. Butcher's face twisted. "He's got a bomb!" Dredd didn't slow. "Then we arrest him alive." Starlight was there too, slipping in through a side door, eyes wide as she saw the device. Her light flared instinctively. Dredd reached the balcony stairs. The bomber backed up, shaking, eyes wild. He looked less like a mastermind and more like someone forced into a role. Security raised guns at him. The bomber screamed, "Don't shoot! Don't shoot!" Dredd climbed fast and stopped at the balcony edge, helmet locking onto the device. "Freeze," Dredd ordered. The bomber's hand shook over a trigger. Dredd didn't aim at the man's head. He aimed at the device. One precise shot snapped out. The round hit the trigger housing and shattered it cleanly. Sparks flew. The bomber yelped and dropped the device. Dredd lunged forward, grabbed the device with both hands, and threw it into an empty corner behind thick concrete columns. Then he threw his body over it. The blast didn't tear the building apart. It wasn't that big. It was big enough. The bang hit like a punch to the chest. Dust burst into the air. Glass rattled. People screamed again. Dredd's armor took the shock. He rolled with it, then rose. The bomber stared, stunned, as if he hadn't expected the judge to cover the blast like that. Dredd grabbed him by the hoodie, slammed him down, and zip-tied his hands in one smooth motion. "Attempted murder," Dredd said. "Terror threat. Endangering civilians." The bomber shook, eyes wet. I didn't want," they said. "Who?" Dredd demanded. The bomber's mouth opened. Then his face froze. His eyes went wide and empty. He collapsed like his strings had been cut. Huey felt his skin go cold. Starlight did too. Her eyes snapped to the crowd, scanning, searching for the source of that sudden death. Newman wasn't on stage, but Huey had learned she didn't need to be. A scream rose from the room below. "He killed him! He killed him!" Camera zoomed. The clip started forming in real time. Dredd runs. Dredd shoots. Bomb. Man dead. Dredd stood over the body, helmet still, hands clenched. He hadn't killed the man. Not with his gun. Not with his hands. But the man was dead. And Vought was going to make that the story. Butcher pushed through security and reached the balcony, face furious. "This is it!" he growled. "This is the part where we stop pretending!" He looked down at the Vought advisor below. Adler, smiling faintly even in panic. Butcher's eyes went murderous. Dredd stepped in front of him. "No," Dredd said. Butcher stared at the visor. "He set this up!" Dredd's voice stayed hard. "Prove it." Butcher barked a laugh. "He just killed our witness!" Dredd's helmet didn't move. "Then we find another." Butcher's hands shook. "You're unbelievable." Dredd's voice was flat. "You are unstable." Butcher took one step like he might shove past. Dredd's hand rose, palm out, stopping him without touching him. "Stand down," Dredd ordered. Butcher's jaw worked. Huey ran up the stairs, breathless. "Butcher, please." Butcher's eyes flicked to Huey, and for one moment, the rage cracked enough to show something else. Fear. Because if Butcher did it now, if he killed on camera, Vought would win forever. Butcher looked away, swallowing hard. "Fine," he spat. "Fine." Down below, security began shouting orders. Police tried to take control. Vought staff pretended to help while guiding cameras. Dredd looked at Huey. "Release the full record." Huey blinked. "What?" Dredd tapped his helmet. "My recording is complete. Your camera is also running." Huey swallowed. "Yeah, it is." Dredd's voice was firm. "Now." Huey's hands shook as he pulled out the device. Frenchie was already beside him, moving fast. Starlight stepped close, face set with focus. "We can push it," Starlight said. "Right now. Multiple accounts. Multiple servers." MM nodded. "Do it." They did. Within minutes, the full footage hit 3 channels, then 7, then dozens. Not the polished Vought angle, the raw angle. Dredd shooting the trigger, not the man. Dredd throwing the device away. Dredd covering the blast. The bomber's mouth opening to speak. And then the sudden, unnatural stop. People online slowed the clip and watched the exact moment the bomber died. They asked the same question at once. Why did he die before he spoke? The hearing dissolved into chaos. Officials shouted. Security swarmed Dredd like ants trying to move a rock. Dredd did not fight them like a brawler. He used procedure. "I am not resisting." "Arrest," Dredd said loudly. "State the charge." A police officer grabbed his arm. "You're coming with us." Dredd turned his helmet. "Name and badge." The officer blinked, thrown off. "What?" "Name and badge," Dredd repeated. The officer hesitated. That hesitation was on camera. Starlight stepped between the officer and Dredd. Light flared in her palms, not as an attack, but as a warning. "Back up," she said. The officer swallowed. He backed up. Dredd looked at the crowd, at the phones, at the officials who had lost control of their own stage. He spoke once, loud and simple. Someone killed a witness to protect criminals. The room roared. Dredd walked out. He didn't run. He didn't escape like a thief. He walked down the steps of City Hall as if he had been dismissed by the court. Outside, people surged. Cameras everywhere. Shouts everywhere. "Are you a hero?" someone screamed. Dredd didn't stop. "No." "What are you?" another shouted. Dredd gave the answer he always gave. A judge. "Say the line!" a teenager yelled, laughing and half crying. Dredd paused just long enough for the microphones to catch his voice. "Move along," he said. Then he mounted his bike and rode into the city's noise, leaving Vogt with a problem that didn't fit their usual box. That night, in a quiet room high above the city, Stan Edgar watched the raw footage with his hands folded. Adler stood in the corner, face pale. "They're asking questions." Edgar didn't look up. "Let them ask." Adler swallowed. "The clip shows the device was disabled. It shows he didn't kill the man." Edgar's voice was calm. "I didn't need the world to believe he killed him." Adler blinked. "Then why?" Edgar's eyes lifted, cold and clear. "I needed the world to see that he can't control the outcomes." He tapped the screen where the bomber collapsed before speaking. "Now," Edgar said, "even when he is right, people will wonder what follows." Adler hesitated. "And Homelander?" Edgar's mouth tightened slightly. "Homelander is emotional. This makes him emotional." Edgar leaned back. "We will not win by punching Dredd. We will win by exhausting him." He looked out at the city lights. "Containment," Edgar said. In another part of the city, Homelander stared at the same footage alone, jaw tight. He watched Dredd cover the blast. He watched the crowd cheer Dredd's courage. He watched Starlight stand beside him again. Homelander's fists clenched. He didn't want Dredd dead because Dredd was strong. He wanted Dredd dead because Dredd didn't kneel, and because a tiny part of the world was starting to notice. Homelander's smile returned slowly, sharp and ugly. "Fine," he whispered. "Let's see how long you last." Dredd returned to the safe house after midnight. The room smelled like cheap coffee and damp coats. The freed prisoners were gone now, moved to safer, places Starlight helped find. The evidence chain had grown. Reporters, lawyers, old cops, community watchers. It wasn't perfect. It was real. Huey sat at the table, exhausted. "We did it," he whispered, like saying it too loud would break it. Butcher stood in the corner, arms crossed, staring at nothing. MM looked at Dredd. "So what's the play?" Dredd set a thick folder on the table. "Routine continues." Butcher finally spoke, voice rough. "You think routine beats them?" Dredd's helmet turned. "Yes," Butcher scoffed. "They'll come harder?" Dredd's voice stayed flat. "Then we build stronger." Butcher stepped forward, eyes blazing. "And when the only way to stop them is to kill?" Dredd's answer came without pause. "Then you will be arrested." The room went quiet. Huey flinched, expecting Butcher to explode. Butcher didn't. He stared at the visor for a long beat, then looked away like he was swallowing fire. "Yeah," Butcher muttered. "All right." It wasn't agreement. It was a truce. Starlight watched it happen and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not safety. Possibility. Dredd picked up a pen and began writing on a new charge sheet like the day had been normal. Huey looked at him, then at the city outside the window. "How do you keep doing that?" Huey asked. Dredd didn't look up. "Because it is required." Huey swallowed. "By who?" Dredd paused for half a second. Then he wrote one last line and set the paper down. "By the law," he said. And in this world, that sounded like a myth. But Dredd treated it like a job. The city was quieter on the roof, not silent. Never silent. There were always cars, always sirens, always distant shouting. But up here, the noise blended into something steady. Judge Dredd stood near the edge with his helmet on, coat moving in the wind. His bike sat behind him, heavy and ready. The red recording light blinked with calm patience. Hebo looked down at the streets. The same streets that had laughed at him. The same streets that now watched for him. Below, a small group of people gathered near a corner store, where a man had been shaking down the owner for money. 2 days ago, nobody would have stepped in. Tonight, one woman held up her phone and said loudly, "We're recording." The man stopped. He looked around. He left. It wasn't justice. Not fully. But it was a crack. Dredd's helmet turned slightly as footsteps approached from behind. Starlight stepped onto the rooftop, hood down, hair messy, face tired. No cameras with her now. "I wanted to check on you," she said. Dredd's voice was flat. "I am operational." Starlight huffed a small laugh. "Of course you are." She stepped closer to the edge beside him, looking down. "They're calling you the real hero now," she said. Dredd didn't react. "Labels are noise?" Starlight nodded. "Vought is calling you a threat again." "The government is investigating. People online are arguing non-stop." Dredd's voice stayed steady. "Expected?" Starlight looked up at him. "Do you ever get tired?" Dredd paused. Just a fraction. "Yes," he said. Starlight blinked. She hadn't expected honesty. Dredd continued, simple and clear. "But tired is not a reason to stop." Starlight's throat tightened. She stared out over the city. "You know," she said quietly, "I used to think being a hero was about looking good on camera." Dredd didn't answer. He didn't need to. Starlight swallowed. "Now, I think it's about doing the right thing when nobody claps." Dredd's helmet turned to her. "Correct." Behind them, a door opened on the roof access. A kid stepped out, maybe 16, cheeks red from cold, phone already held up. He froze when he saw them. "Oh, wow, it's really you." Starlight's shoulders tensed. Dredd didn't move. The kid lifted the phone higher. "Can I get a quick selfie? Just one? Please. Say the line, too." Dredd looked at the phone, then at the kid. "Move along," he said. The kid's face fell. "Come on, man." Dredd's voice was flat. "This is not entertainment." The kid hesitated, then lowered the phone slowly. "Right," he muttered, embarrassed. "Sorry." He turned to leave. Dredd's helmet followed him for a second. Then Dredd said, "Wait." The kid froze. Dredd stepped closer, heavy boots quiet on concrete. "What is your name?" Dredd asked. The kid blinked. Mateo." Dredd nodded once. "Mateo, if you see a crime, record it. Do not intervene. Do not approach. Send it to this number." He held out a slip of paper with a contact on it. Mateo stared. Is this like your hotline?" Dredd's voice was simple. "It is evidence." Mateo took the paper with both hands like it mattered. "Okay," he whispered. Then he left without another selfie request. Starlight watched him go, surprised. "You just recruited him." Dredd's voice stayed calm. "Witnesses are useful." Starlight shook her head slightly. "You're unbelievable." Dredd turned back to the city. Down below, far away, Vought Tower still stood clean and tall. Homelander still flew. Stan Edgar still planned. Newman still smiled in front of cameras. The world was still sick. But now there was a new pressure in it. A man who wouldn't bend. A chain that was starting to form, link by link. Dredd's radio crackled. Not a police frequency, not an official channel. A community signal, a watcher network. A voice came through, nervous. "Judge, we got something. Armed men. No uniforms. Taking someone into a van, East 54th. Dredd didn't hesitate. He swung onto the bike. Starlight stepped back, light flaring around her hands. "I'm coming." Dredd's helmet turned slightly. "Do not break your cover." Starlight's jaw tightened. "I'm done hiding." Dredd held her gaze for one beat. Then he said, "Move!" The bike engine growled, and he launched off the rooftop access ramp into the night. Starlight watched him go, then turned toward the door, already planning her own route. Far below, the city kept breathing, and somewhere inside it, people started learning a simple idea again. Life didn't stop, But it didn't have to stay the same. Not if the law kept moving.